Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us on our very first episode of the Glowhood Podcast. So my name is Danielle. I will be your host for the Glowhood Podcast, and in this podcast is essentially aimed to cover the 3 E's: education, entertainment, and encouragement. So before we get into the actual episode, I just want to introduce the whole format of everything. So if you are already familiar with our social media pages, either if you're familiar with the Glowhood Podcast Society, Glowhood Podcast page, or Grown Women Society, then you are familiar with our podcast. And the thing to note about this particular podcast is the sister page to the Grown Women Society. Grown Women Society is actually where most of these posts and the inspiration for these episodes will be coming from. So any of the episodes, if you have any questions on anything, just let me know, and I can always either post it on our Grown Women Society page, or I can actually cover it in an episode of the Glowhood Podcast. So now let's get into the podcast. In today's episode is the introductory episode, so thank you so much for listening. We're just going to cover getting to know yourself. So now let's get into it. Okay, so getting to know yourself. This episode may be geared towards, the younger audience members, but this applies across the board. There was a few things that as I was, growing up, and even more recently, that I realized that there are certain things about myself that, I realized that I didn't really fully know myself, even though I knew aspects of my personality and myself that I certain things that I gravitate towards, certain things that I avoided. So this is just for anyone who wants to clearly define what you like, what you don't like, and all the things that are related to that. So we'll just get into it. It's just going to be a series of questions, and with all of these questions, just write down your answer, or think of your answer. Whatever you do, just think of what the actual answer would be, and then that will help hopefully get you one step closer. So the first question is, as an individual, do you know all of your likes? Do you know all of your dislikes? So that means, do you know the things that you like? Do you know the things you don't like? Also, what are you naturally attracted to? What is something that you also naturally avoid, whether it being intentional or unintentional? So these are things that are either, fully conscious or subconscious things. And an example for me is I have an aversion towards anything, so seafood, sea creatures, sea anything. I have a natural aversion towards it. I never really understood why. I just don't really like it. But funny enough, my favorite animal is a seahorse, so it's kind of weird, but yeah, so things like that. What are you naturally attracted to? What are you naturally not attracted to? And that's not just saying in a person or in a romantic relationship. That is across the board. What are things that you like and don't like? Okay, so that's just the first set of questions. That should be the basics. If you can answer these questions with no problem, then good. If not, we can continue and then we can go from there. So the next set of questions is, do you know the differences between your wants versus your needs? So that is a very important thing to distinguish. Things that you want versus things that you need. An example would be, as a human, you need to eat. But what do you want to eat is where the want comes in. So do you want cereal, or do you want a hamburger, or do you want pizza? Those are wants, but you need food. So you need sustenance to continue living. So that's very important to distinguish the want versus a need. Okay, let me define that a little bit more. A need is something that you cannot live without, such as food, air, shelter, clothes, the basics, the Maslow hierarchy of needs. If you don't know what that is, look it up. You could Google it. It's called Maslow, MASLO, hierarchy of needs. It's one of the basic concepts in psychology. So if you're familiar, if you're a psych major, you know what it is. If you're not, you can Google it. It's very simple. Basically tells you from as a human the basics that every human needs, and from the bottom up. It's a pyramid. You have your basic needs, then it builds upon that until you get to, the pinnacle being, you self-actualization and, being able to fully tap into your potential as a human. Okay, and then a want is something that is more specialized. So, i.e., as the example that I used, you need food, but you want a certain kind of food. So that is a want versus a need. Another example is you need new shoes because obviously you can't just walk around barefoot in our modern society. That's obviously not really common. So, yes, you need shoes, but do you want a $50 pair of shoes or do you want $300 pairs of shoes? That's up to you to decide. So that's also where you can distinguish a want versus a need. If you need something, you'll just take whatever you need. But if you want something, you kind of want to have it be more refined, more something towards your liking. Okay, so again, there's nothing wrong with having wants and needs. However, the important thing is to prioritize your needs over your wants. So first, handle the basics, handle all of the necessities, and then build upon that to create whatever it is you want. So you need to be able to have the basics covered. If you don't have the basics covered, there's no possible way that you can then decide that, oh, I want to have a Maserati, but you don't have a place to live. Like, that's where the priorities start to, it needs to be something that is focused on. Priorities need to take priority in your decision making when you're deciding on a want versus a need. So that's the second set of questions. As you answer these questions, just take time. You can even pause this, just take some time. And then from there, build upon that. And then we'll move into the next set of questions. So next set of questions is, are you organized versus disorganized? So that means, do you like having everything neatly in its place and in order, or do you like having things wherever you can find them? So an example would be, are you someone who has everything, like you are super organized to the point where like your clothes and everything is like super color coordinated, everything is matching everything, you know where your shirts are, you know where your pants are, you know where your jeans are, you know where your underwear is, you know where all that is? Or do you just have everything like, yeah, your clothes are up, but like, they are where they are and you kind of know where to find them, although someone else walking in would probably not know where to find it, but you know where it is, so it's working for you. That's totally fine. Don't feel bad if you're one or the other, because it really, like, that's just getting to know yourself. It's not, there's no penalty for being one way or the other. There is, however, it is a little bit easier to be more time efficient if you're more organized, but that's not to say that if you are disorganized that you're also not good with time. That's not the case. So, this is, again, just trying to get to know yourself. So don't take any of these things as criticism. Just take it as, this is you discovering what you like, what you don't like, what you can do, what you can't do. Okay, so next question is, do you find being organized versus disorganized saves you time or makes life easier, or does it make it more difficult to maintain? So this is a really good question, because as I mentioned, being organized is a little bit more time efficient. However, also doing the organization does take up some time. So it's a catch-22 at the same time. So if you feel like it's easier for you to just be a little bit more disorganized and just, at least put things where they are and you'll find them when you need them, do you. If you feel like, no, I need to have this in a particular place so I can always find it and I know always where it is and I'm always going to put it back in that place, again, do you. That's totally fine. So, those are the, basic set of questions in terms of like your personality in that regard. So now we're going to move into a little bit more deeper things, and this is a little bit more difficult to address if you haven't already addressed it, in therapy or anything like that. So next set of questions are, have you ever had any traumatic experiences in your past? Do you have any in your childhood? Has it affected the way you interact with others or how you see the world? So a lot of people will probably have an answer for that. And, if if there's something that has happened to you that was traumatic, you know, whether it being like your parents got divorced, or one of your parents died, or you know, you may have been sexually assaulted or assaulted in general, or you know, just anything has happened, that does have an effect over the kind of person you become, or the kind of person that you are. Especially things that happen in childhood, they do affect you as an adult. And trust me when I say this, they do affect you. So if you don't really address those things, it can just hinder you, and it can make life a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. So a suggestion that I would always say is go to therapy. If you don't go to therapy, it's harder to address those things. And it doesn't have to be like you go to a therapist every single week and you know, you just find what works for you, find what's in your budget, find what's in your range and what makes you comfortable. But just make sure that you're able to express that to someone, especially a professional, because that's literally their job. So you know, try and address those things, because again, that can shape the way you are. It's just easier if you're already someone who's addressing the issue at hand, for you to then also not take that on other people, because that's a huge thing. It becomes a cycle, and it becomes a cycle and a ripple effect. So in order to avoid that and to stop that, it's better that you address that issue and nip it in the bud. So that's, you know, that's one of the more deeper questions, but you know, this is again getting to know yourself. So another question that you can answer also is, do you put out positive, neutral, or negative vibes? Where and what, the way you'll be able to know what kind of vibes you put out is also the kind of people who are attracted to you in general. The kind of people who want to become your friends, the kind of people who want to get in relationships with you, the kind of people that you are surrounded with. That's how you'll be able to determine what kind of vibes you put out. If you put out positive vibes, most likely you're going to have positive people also in your life. If you put out negative vibes, most likely you're going to have negative people be in your life. If you put out neutral vibes, then that's where it becomes 50-50, because it can be like it's neutral. So any and everyone can literally come positive or negative, or people who are also neutral. So the way that I discovered the kind of vibes that I was giving out was, you know, I looked at my inner circle and I was like, what kind of person is this? Like, is this someone who, you know, they're always complaining, or they're always sad, or they're always, you know, mean to other people? Or is this someone who's always happy, who's always uplifting, who's always trying to, you know, make things better for everyone, who's always trying to make everyone else's life a little bit better? Or is this someone who, you know, kind of goes with the flow, you know, it is what it is. You know, some days are cool, some days are bad, and most of us will probably fall in the middle. So, you know, most days we're cool, some days we're not cool. Like, it just depends. So that's how you can decide and discover what kind of vibes you put out, because again, you know, you are what you put out. So if you're putting out those vibes will definitely come back to you. Okay, so that is one question. So if you want me to get into detail with this, just leave a comment. I'll also upload this on YouTube, so you can leave a comment in the comment section, or you can always hit us up on our social media. Yeah, so next question is, what are your goals for your life? I know that's a big one. What are your goals for your life? So that being, what are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? What are your, you know, medium-term goals? So what is something that you want to achieve before the end of the year? What is something you want to achieve within 2 to 3 years? What is something you want to achieve in 5 years? What is something you want to achieve in 10 years? And then what is something you want to achieve before you die? Those are the different ranges of goals. And also you could have a goal for daily goal as well. Like, today I'm going to make sure that I make my bed and I exercise for 30 minutes. Boom. That's a goal. If you hit it, boom, you're good. You know? And that can also then translate. Your daily goals will basically equal how you are able to achieve the long-term goals. So that's something that's very important. Also, what are your desires? What are things that you desire as an individual? Are you someone who dreams big and is a go-getter? Are you a self-motivator? Or are you more laid back and passive? Do you actively see things happening for yourself, or do you just let things happen to you and then deal with it? So are you proactive or reactive? You know, those are some things that it would make it a little bit easier to figure out what kind of person you are if you take a second, look back, just look at how different things play out in your life, and then just, analyze it from there. So next kind of question would be, are you confrontational or are you passive aggressive? So this is a really good one. Are you someone who, if there's an issue, you'll address it head on, no problems, and you're not afraid of stirring the pot or doing whatever? Or are you someone who's like passive aggressive, where you're not going to address them head on, but you will still make it known that you don't like whatever is happening, and you'll kind of this is where you can either be petty or not petty. Being passive aggressive is just it's interesting. And then that'll also determine what kind of person you are as well. And then another question is, are you kind or are you mean or rude? So this one is a little bit tricky, because what some people see themselves as being a nice person, and I say that in air quotes, some people who say they are nice are not. And then some people who don't say they're nice are. So it's a little bit tricky, but a good rule of thumb is, if someone has to say that they are nice, they probably aren't. You will be able to see that they are nice. You'll be able to just see by their actions and how they treat other people if they are nice or they aren't. So, but that's not to say that some people who do say that they are nice are not nice. Again, everyone, like, some people are nice. Like, for me, I feel like I am a nice person. That doesn't mean that that's how everyone else sees me, but that's how I see myself. I feel like I am kind, all that stuff, but again, if someone has to tell someone on a consistent basis that that's what they are, then there's probably a little bit something that they're probably not. They're probably not. It's a little tricky. It depends also on the person too. So again, but this is you trying to get to know yourself, right? Another question is, would you consider yourself spiritual, religious, or neither? So let me differentiate between spiritual and religious. Spiritual is someone who believes in God, but who doesn't kind of follow any set rules like religion. Religion is you believe in God and you follow the rules of that religion. Or not even just that you believe in God, you believe in a higher power and you follow the rules that go with that religion. So being religious versus being spiritual. And then there's some people who, not interested in either. So, you can be atheist and you just, the world is the way it is, right? So that will also, determine your outlook on life. Because if you feel like there's things always conspiring for your greater good, or for not your greater good, that will determine on how you see the world. If you also are like, no, I take things into my own hands, I am my own person and I can do things on my own, there is nothing else, then that'll also determine what kind of person you are. So the last couple questions, actually this is the last question, is, are you confident or are you insecure within yourself? So this is a huge one. Are you confident or are you insecure? And now the thing with confidence and insecurity is they can display themselves in different ways. So it's not always the person who's super shy and who doesn't really like to talk being insecure. That's not necessarily the case. There are some people who are shy. That doesn't mean that they're not confident, and there are some people who try and act like they're confident when it really comes off more as being arrogant because there's an insecurity somewhere. So that you would actually need to dive deep. Again, therapy is going to be your best friend, okay? But therapy does help, it helps define different things within, yourself and your personality. So if you feel like any of these things are helpful with you determining the kind of person you are or getting to know yourself, just let me know. Please leave a comment or a review on Apple iTunes. Also, please follow us on all our social media at Glowhood Podcast. Also, you can follow the sister page, Grown Women Society. It's not only for women, it's for everyone, but obviously it's more tailored towards women. So feel free to follow. And you can follow us on all platforms. And you can find this podcast on any place that you find podcasts on your regular listening sources. So I hope that these questions were helpful. And if you have any other questions that you'd like to add that you think would be helpful to getting to know yourself, then please let me know, and I can always do a follow-up episode to this. And so thank you so much, and I hope that this was a little bit helpful. We'll get into like an introductory episode a little bit later, just getting to know me as your host, because you guys don't know me. So just let me know, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.